Welcome to the new episode of More Than Dice, and I see that our chat screen is off the side of the screen, which is okay. We can just look on the chat on Twitch and everything to get what we need, just not showing up on the side. Yay for technical issues. Hopefully everybody can hear us. We don't have any problems. But that's a minor one that I'm not too worried about. Not being able to see the chat on screen is not that big of an issue. Welcome to an episode of More Than Dice. Cathy, we're on episode
93?
92.
Damn.
Xander says we sound good, so that should be pretty good.
I didn't. I counted last week, I guess.
You did, and we didn't do last week, so.
No, we all kind of took a little bit of a break. So we're in chat. Everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be rolling. Welcome to episode 92, where Cathy is going to be talking about Reapercon. John and I have something to talk about on Star Wars Legion. And I have a lot of questions about Reapercon, too. So, Cathy, you're going to get like a kind of an interview type thing, too. So
that works better for me anyways.
John gets to take a nap after half of it.
Captain Mizzy says Cathy and John are a bit too quiet, but that could be me.
I mean, you're comparing us to Gonzo. We're always going to sound quiet.
Yeah, eventually it was too loud.
Do, but Xander says that it sounds good at the mo.
Here. I'll turn up Cathy and John just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, and I will leave mine just the way it is. That way it's not going to be an issue.
I am worried about this stupid thing.
What stupid thing?
This little button on Twitch says click to claim a bonus.
Yep, claim the bonus.
Bonus.
Channel points. I haven't given out channel points or done any of that stuff to buy things on our thing, but that's just how it is. So, hey, John Spencer, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1 level.
Hey, you're welcome. Self-promotion is a thing. And it is totally shameless. I'm taking that.
All right. So, we are on episode 92, our Reapercon episode, which I actually kind of wish I would have gone this year. But finances did not go with me, and I have to be careful of what I spend my money on lately. So, I didn't
we all have only so many conventions we can go to in a year. And that just happens to be one of the ones that is important for me and Jim.
Oh, very much so. That's kind of like, there's certain conventions that you would go to that I wouldn't go to, and that I would go to and you wouldn't go to type thing. But
ones I want to go to, but I can't, and vice versa.
Yep. Type thing. I may try to do it next year. I don't know. It all depends. So, let's go ahead and start off. John, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, in addition to a shot of Captain Morgan Cannon Blast to start off the night with my after my healthy swig because of my week, I'm going to drink a screwdriver, a small screwdriver, just a tiny one.
Cathy?
Phillips or standard?
I think that one's standard because it's got the sharp blade just because it might end up hurting. We'll see. It was not very frugal with the vodka. I'm like, we only have so much left. Let's put all the shit in.
Oh, well, sure. I am drinking tea, Earl Grey, hot, and some water over here too.
I'm gonna be drinking the last bit of my dragon's milk. I've only got like 2 more bottles left, so I figured I would do that and work on it. Do we need to give a salute to anyone besides JVM, John? For anybody that doesn't know, Nova Open was it last weekend?
It was last weekend.
Yeah. And JVM's playing a match, and Zosha is, I guess, judging it or whatever.
Judging there. She might have been judging that particular game, but she's judging there and doing social media updates because she's really good at it.
And so she was doing that, And John, take it from there.
So I believe, as the story goes, his opponent was trying to move a model, and the JVM goes, "Oh, you can't. That model's engaged." And she replies, "I'm glad something at this table is." So, R.I.P. JVM, because Osha just killed you.
Yes. Zosha
Also,
gotcha.
I don't know who any of these people are.
The War Machine and Horde players, and they're a pretty big community. Zosha and JVM, they've been dating off and on, they've been together for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So this is hilarious then.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
The other one is actually Robert Axelrod, who did a ton of voices for years and years and years.
Like what?
Most notably, to most people, our listeners' ages would be, he was the voice of Lord Zed in Power Rangers. But he has,
Oh, yeah.
just look at his IMDb. He's probably in something you know. He has done that many voices. He's one of those Frank Welker types who's just in so many things.
Gotcha.
But he passed, and I mean, we'll give him a hearty cheers.
So, everybody, we also want to thank all of our sponsors, Muse on Minis, Mechanica Studios, and Tectonic Car Studios. We want to thank them so much for all that they do for us. And we want to thank all of our listeners. Y'all are amazing. We have seen such some incredible things from y'all. And we appreciate everybody sharing our posts, liking our stuff, joining our Patreon, and helping us get new equipment and better equipment. That's kind of what all this goes into. We appreciate it. We appreciate it a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, damn, that's good. Oh, yes, it is. So, Cathy, you went to Reapercon. For the people who don't know, now, most of us know what Reaper is. It's a miniature company.
So
Pretty
Reaper
much.
Miniatures, I won't assume that everyone knows what Reaper Miniatures is, because when I do, it means there's somebody out there that's never heard of them.
Yeah.
So they make miniatures. They started out years and years and years ago making pewter miniatures. A lot of the sculptors who sculpted for Ralph Partha and other companies have also sculpted for Reaper. Bob Rodelfi, Julie Guthrie, Sandra Garrity,
my ex-wife's favorite.
Dennis Mize. We can go on. But anyway, so Reaper Miniatures has a shit ton of fantasy models of all types. And when I first discovered them, I was like, where have you been all my role-playing life? Because previous to discovering Reaper, there was no female model that ever was even close to representing any of my characters for any fantasy role-playing game that I played over the course of, a decade. And, I was ecstatic. I grabbed blisters of models off the pegboard by the fistful, and that was my first experience with Reaper. And I think Reaper Miniatures paints, all those years ago when they were in screw top jars, were my first miniature paints too, after I, realized that my golden acrylic artist paints were not cutting it. As a person who had never painted miniatures before, it was a terrible medium to start in. I could maybe do it now. I know there's a bunch of people out there that do, but if you're just starting out, regular artist acrylics are a lousy medium to start out painting miniatures in. But so Reaper Miniatures, they host this convention every year. It used to be in the spring at their factory, and then they moved it to October, and as it was growing. And a few years ago, there was a hotel that was built in Denton, Texas, which is the same town that the Reaper factory is. That's where all those miniatures are made. Although I think some of their Bones miniatures now are being made in China. All their metal stuff is made at the factory in Texas. Gotcha. And their paint. The paints as well. So it's Labor Day weekend now for the foreseeable future, and the people at Reaper really like this weekend. Jim and I like this weekend. It's grown from like 500 people last year to like 1,500 people this year, which is a pretty big leap for a small convention.
Well,
And
it's a big leap for a convention that's just about miniatures they make that are not for a game. They're just, and I want to say generic, but that's kind of what it is:
yeah,
generic
well,
miniature, generic fantasy, or generic miniatures.
last year they started having the D&D Adventure League playing there. So they had a ton of tables for D&D and Pathfinder setup, and other role-playing games I believe were played there as well. So, D&D and Pathfinder are perfect games for their miniatures because they have all these monsters, like you find in a Fiend Folio or, mythology.
Yeah,
They have, like I said, they have a ton of character options. Male, female, elf, half orc, gnome, dwarf, halfling, human, obviously. Um, and So they're fantastic for any fantasy role playing game, really. You could probably find what you want. And if they don't have what you want, if you found the perfect model and it has a sword instead of an axe, well, guess what? They have weapon packs that they sell as well. So you
Yes, they
can cut
do.
the guy's sword off and put an axe on him.
Truth.
So they just have a really good thing going. And we've been going there for. See, this was my 4th year and Jim's 6th year going to this one, and we just have a blast, and people just sit down and paint models together. They have the MSP open, and I think it's called Master Series Painters Open. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so, because isn't that the name of their paint line, Master Series?
yeah.
I guess.
Cassie's like, yeah.
It says MSP, but it doesn't say what it stands for. Master
Because
Series Paint is my guess. Anyways,
Yep, that's the name of their paint series.
yeah. So I like their paints. I like their models. The people who work there are really friendly. They're genuine, and they put on a good party. And their paint competition is a lot of fun. It's an open competition. You you don't have to paint Reaper miniatures to enter this competition. And sometimes people think, oh well, it's like a manufacturer's thing. You can only do Reaper miniatures. No. You can enter whatever model from whatever manufacturer you want, and you'll win. You'll win the medals that uh, are just like for you. So I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this.
there isn't
Jim
a.
explains it way better, but what they do is they judge you against yourself. So you could get a certificate, you could get a bronze medal, you could get a silver medal, you could get a gold. And that's judged based on your previous work, or if you've never entered anything, then they just kind of, they have like points also that they use to decide if something's in a, like a low bronze or a high bronze, or a low silver or almost gold, but not quite gold. And they keep track of which judges judged your entries so that afterwards you can go and talk to those judges and get feedback on your entries. What you could do to make it better, which a lot of people really like.
Well, if you're looking to get better, that's what you should. I mean, if you're just
Yeah.
looking just to win a prize and you don't care about getting better or whatever, then you just want to know if you got first, second, or third. But if you're looking to improve and get better, then you want that feedback from whoever's judging the convention.
Yeah. And if you do want to try for the Sophie, which is Sophie is their mascot basically. She's a tall, beautiful female demon with wings. And they have a trophy of her. And that's when you need to be painting a Reaper model. If you want to win a Sophie, it has to be a Reaper model. That's their manufacturer part of the competition.
Gotcha.
But there are other manufacturers that also give prizes there. Bombshell Miniatures has a manufacturer's award, and Dark Sword Miniatures has a manufacturer's award. I don't remember if Warlord Games did this year, but I'm pretty sure they're planning to next year. This was their first year at Reapercon in the dealer's room. I don't remember who else does. There was a Chibi. There was a Best Chibi Award. And then Michelle Farnsworth organized the Paint It Pink, which was breast cancer charity award. Mm-hmm. And that brought in a lot of donations. And I don't remember which charity it was which breast cancer charity it was that it went to.
Michelle's an old friend of mine. I did notice, someone had posted up and had a link to all the models that were in the Reaper competition that they took pictures of and stuff. And it's gone and shows, the person's name and all the miniatures they put in. And of course, the first thing I go and look up is you and James. One, because I want to see James's Dark Sword miniatures. I'm sure, because I thought he was going to do a bunch of Song of Ice and Fire ones. But you won an award. And actually, talk about that one model that you bought, because I'd never seen you post a picture on it or even talk about it. And I saw it, and I was like, okay, it's something totally different than what I would ever expect you to paint.
Oh, is it super secret tech?
It's not super secret. No, I painted that a couple years ago. And it may have been before I started with you guys. But it was given to me by my friend Paul Fillon. And he and his friend Antoine Bergeron have a podcast called Geeks of the North. They're Canadian. And Antoine sculpted the original for his daughter and made a small run of casts. And Paul gave one to me, and it was adorable. So what it is it's a little stuffed animal unicorn, and I painted it with this pattern. I wanted it to look sort of like a pajama pattern or something. It was blue, this sort of pastel kind of blue, and had the little pink dots on it, and it's the bottoms of its feet and the bottoms of its paws were plaid, like a yellow plaid. And its tail and mane were red. And
it's so different for you, though, from what I'm used to.
I had so much fun painting this. Oh, it was adorable.
It was because when I went to look at it, I was looking for your Nurgle stuff, or stuff that I'm used to you painting. The really gross, ugly, vile stuff. And Cathy wins. What'd you win? A gold?
I won a gold with this one.
For a stuffed unicorn in pajamas. So, I mean, it was good. It's just I wasn't expecting that from you. I was like, Cathy painting a stuffed unicorn
in pajamas? Funny because I entered 3 things in the painters category. And one of them was the Ogre Cannoneer that I painted on stream. That's the Artisan Guild one. Mm-hmm. But I knew there were parts of it that were kind of rough, because when I paint on stream and then I call something done, often there are still parts of it that are left a little rough. And the other one was the Wolfman bust from Blackheart Models. I actually painted it and finished it, and the clear coat was drying as I took it in on Friday night to enter it into the competition. So that was just this was really fun to paint. I'm just going to throw it in there. I don't expect anything. And then the third one was my unicorn. And those were just things that were finished that I just wanted to put in there. I wasn't hoping, I wasn't expecting, I didn't have any expectations. So
It was just
but you
very
can
interesting
only
to see your piece that won was a chibi type unicorn in pajamas. When I'm so used to you painting, Nurgle stuff and you know thing, and I was like, it was a good piece. It's just I wasn't expecting it. I was like, okay,
I I believe that I need to put something in there every year that has a stuffed animal in it.
make a
Now,
tradition now.
well, last year I entered Tiny Cathy into the open category because that's the category where you put converted, like heavily converted and scratch sculpted things.
hmm
And she's scratch sculpted. So I put her in there and I won the gold for her. And she's holding a stuffed animal and she's wearing pajama pants.
I think I have the perfect model for you. I'll have
Yeah.
to find one in box so I can send it to you, I think. Let me note this so I don't forget, because I'm likely to forget, so.
In the elusive box of stuff for Cathy.
Sort of
You'll
like that
throw
box of
in
stuff for
there.
Gonzo.
Actually, Gonzo, your box of stuff's right over here on the shelf. I just need to send it.
But and then I saw James's, which I thought was interesting because I was expecting some Song of Ice and Fire stuff, especially with Dark Sword being there. And what was that piece? The motorcycle.
That's something from Wild West Exodus that he painted, well, before War Cradle changed it into a completely different game, but called it Wild West Exodus.
Interesting.
And, I mean, they used the same models as far as I know, but they
Yeah.
just, like, have changed the entire game. So back when Jim liked Wild West Exodus, and he painted a ton of models for that, that was one of the things he did for them. Or
Now,
for himself, for them.
question on that. What are the guidelines for bringing a model? Because you're saying Jim painted that a long time ago. Some places, and it's not everybody. Some of them like this model has to be painted in like the last year or within a certain time frame.
So,
You'd never be able to know.
yeah.
That's what I was wondering
like,
what their guideline is.
There's online competitions where you show a picture of, the model in the blister and the receipt or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Or it's just enough but you can game that system too. You can just buy another model and be
Yeah,
like,
just buy
here's
another
my
one.
unpainted model. Meanwhile, my finished one is sitting right next to me,
Yeah.
and game it that way. I mean, you know,
You'd have to be like, you have to stream every
but
part of you painting the model.
right? Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
But I can understand the ones where they say you cannot have entered this into another competition
Mm-hmm.
before, and that was what Crystal Brush did.
Yeah.
And that one, what with social media being the way it is, it's fairly easy to check up on something if you really need to,
Oh, yeah.
and the miniature community being what it is, there's going to be somebody who is like, oh, I saw that at Duke of Bavaria.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's a pretty self-regulating community.
yeah.
Yeah. But they don't have any of those rules at Reaper.
No, not like that, no. And although Jim had never entered that into any other thing, he just painted that for his Wild West Exodus army or faction or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And same with my little pony, my unicorn. That's never been entered into anything, so, and neither of the other two things I had were, so why not? I'll just throw them in there. But so I had three things, and this is interesting, and a lot of people don't realize it. You can enter multiple things into a category. I entered those three things into the painters category. The judges will only pick the one that they feel is the best of those three.
Oh, so you could submit 5 things into Chibi, but you can only get you're best at a chibi.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
That's not bad.
Kathy, you want to talk about another thing you had a painting competition of? Maybe a live painting competition?
Oh, so Friday night, so Fort Wapple was kicking the whole time. There were people sitting at the table with us painting. I was painting my Wolfman. I was painting not Morticia, Lily Munster, and the little fox girl that I picked up. And lots of people were there trying to finish their models for the competition. You know, just working all day. From these are people who were there from breakfast until we actually would sing the Folgers in our cup jingle to each other in the morning as we got there and sat down to paint, and we're just there painting all day on Friday. And after everybody entered all their stuff in Friday night, that was the deadline. We got that. We had dinner. You know, we had a drink, had a beer maybe. We came back. We're painting some more. People are being silly because it's like 11 o'clock, and there's a guy sitting next to me. That was Drew Olds sitting next to me, and he's like, "Yeah, I kind of want to paint. You guys are painting that, and I kind of want to paint, but I don't have any model." His thing was done. It was entered into the competition. And I'm like, "Well, there's some gummy bears here." Somebody had dropped off a couple of packets of gummy bears. The Haribo kind, not the sugar-free ones, obviously. And so he's like, "Well, that sounds interesting, but I don't have a brush." So I'm like, "Here, have a brush." And he's like, "Well, I don't have any paints. I don't have a palette." I'm like, "Well, you can use my paints." The guy across from me is like, "You can use my paints." And I said, "And Liz won't mind if you use her palette," or this Liz Hunt, her palette's sitting there open. I said, "Just use her wet palette." And so it's Drew. Across from me is Tony. He's Sovereign on Twitch. Sovereign 83? I don't know. I don't remember the numbers. Sorry, Sovereign. But he was airbrushing last a couple nights ago. Anyways, so he's seeing Drew having all this fun painting the gummy bear, and Drew's commenting on the lack of detail. Like, what? Where are the eyes supposed to be? Like, wait, are these ears or are these eyes? He's like, when you really get in here, there's a remarkable lack of detail on these gummy bears. And so Sovereign wants to paint one, and then the guy next to him's like, we got him painting one. And somebody else sat down and was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" "Paint gummy bears." And one thing I found out is that Stynylrez Res primer, though I love it to death, and it covers almost everything except gummy bears. So if you're painting gummy bears, you don't have to they're like bones. You don't have to prime it. So I had the sad experience of discovering the Stynylrez Res would just like peel off. I'd put my brush on to put the next brush stroke on, and it would just peel off my previous one. So then I went to rinse it off in my rinse cup, and of course it's it's a sugary treat. So I'm pretty sure that didn't help with the detail on the model. And I just set it down. I kind of was like, I won't paint one, but these guys are having fun and I'll watch them. But I did eventually. Mine dried off. So I thought, oh, what the hell, I'll give it a try. I started painting mine. Meanwhile, people are like, what are we going to, put these on to hold them? Because, how do you hold a gummy bear and paint it? And so I had all these water bottle caps I was saving for, I use them as paint reservoirs.
Mm-hmm.
And so those became the base for the gummy bear. So now that's the official base for gummy bear painting with a little bit of blue tack. Well, we discovered super glue works even better.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so we had 7 people, including myself, paint gummy bears. And when we were done, they had just finished doing judging in the painting competition, the MSP Open. So they were coming out. So we had Yeji Kim and Aaron Lovejoy and Bryce Kokanor came by and judged our gummy bear painting. It wasn't intended to be a painting contest.
But sometimes it ended up that way.
Things,
Just happen.
just happen at a convention. And now this has to happen every year. We're going to call it the annual Haribo Classic.
People are testing out their techniques on gummy bears at home. This could be crazy.
They are, but you can't just, paint it ahead of time.
No. You test out your techniques. You got to get your game down.
Yeah. You have to use the regulation, the Haribo gummy bear.
Has to be bought at the convention.
There's no bring your own. It's supplied.
I get an idea of wanting to paint up gummy bears and put them on bases and play some stupid army with them. Like, what are you playing? Like, those are gummy bears. Well, I painted them. 3 bases and based. They're modeled now. Suck it.
These are my proxy.
Well, I mean, hey, WTC's allowing proxies. I'm going to bring gummy bears. Suck it. Oh, the giant one can be a colossal. Yes. Oh, this is going downhill quickly.
This is the thing. This is what happens.
Go ahead, Gonzo.
On second thought, let's not go to Fort Wapple. It is a silly place.
Did you get a chance to look at the top 3 overall winners?
No, not close up.
I only saw what was posted, and there were some pretty cool pieces. It was pretty interesting. I know that one of our friends, Anthony Rodriguez, he got like 3rd overall for this orc that he did. It looked like a.
Oh, I've seen that orc too. Yeah, I remember him. He was painting it on stream.
Yeah. So, saw what he did. I don't know who the other 2 people were, but they were amazing pieces. And so it was pretty good. If you haven't seen it, go to their webpage and you can see all the entries. And they have them listed by person, so you can go down and scroll to Cathy's and James and everybody's stuff. Or if you have a painter that you like, you can scroll to them and go, oh, that's what they painted. That's cool. That's neat.
Benjamin Cantor with a K, is the one who got best overall, best in show.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Excuse me, pretty cool piece. What about vendors? Did you get a chance to shop around? Sorry, excuse me.
It's not a huge convention. So the vendors area isn't gigantic. There's a guy, and I wish I could remember his name because last year we hung out a little bit, and he's really funny. But he's a model railroader, like originally, and he sells tools for. He usually is going to model railroading conventions, but he comes to this one, and he's got all the tools for sculpting and for prepping, and I mean he's got files and tweezers and cutters and sculpting tools and glue and magnifier visors and all of those kind of tools that you would need in case you forgot anything. Ken from Badger Airbrush was there.
Of course.
With all the Badger stuff. And I think there was Midnight Heroes was there. Warlord Games. They were selling mainly their Lucid Eye product and not so much with the bolt action type stuff or the Conflict 47. It was mainly the Lucid Eye stuff, which is like just weird monster animal kind of models. Bobby's Bobby's Miniatures or Bobby's Hobbies. Anyways, they are there every year, and they're a local game store there. And the guy's been in business for like 50 years, and he has such a random assortment of stuff from recent to 50 years ago. It's amazing. I remember finding old Keltos models, which of course haven't been made forever, and those old Keltos models are some really fun stuff from Kev White in his early days. But I don't know. It's a vendor's hall. It was small.
So it's not like an Adepticon size vendor hall type thing.
No, which is also not even a Gen Con like vendor hall. So, yeah.
That's cool. So you met a bunch of friends, participated in painting competition, came back with awards, and you decided to part it up once you got back, right? You were like all raring to start painting again.
So we didn't get back until Wednesday night because what we do as artists who are as guest artists is hang out at the Reaper factory during the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and talk to the other artists, talk to the sculptors. It's kind of a conference. The artist sculptors, the concept artists, and everything, and talk about upcoming marketing things. And I didn't hear much about the new Bones, which is supposed to be starting at the end of the month or the 1st of October or something like that.
No, the Kickstarter?
Yeah, their Bones 5 Kickstarter.
Or as I like to call it, do you want more models than you could ever paint? Here's how you get more models than you could ever paint.
Uh-huh. There's some fun ones in there, though. And you don't have to get the entire everything. You can kind of pick and choose now with...
It's usually such a good deal, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And they're like I said, they're super generic. So you're like, I could use this for XYZ, and you're not doing it for a game. And it's not game specific, so you can get like some really cool stuff and use it.
And of course, they have all the dragons. They have a ton of dragons every time.
Yeah, I know. Was it one year they did what, Tiamat? I think it was what, last year.
That was the Meldrakar, and this year, in the ballroom where they had all of the painting tables and the exhibitors area and the painting competition, and they have an arcade area too where they have pinball machines and arcade games.
Mm-hmm. Pinball machines.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that stuff is in the main ballroom. And what was I going to say? I just totally lost my train of thought.
We're talking about the
It was the pinball. I was like, yes, thank you. So they call it Meldrakar, and Julie Guthrie sculpted it. And we walked in there, and there was a gigantic banner that had the one that Jim painted last year at Fort Wapple, like on it. I have a picture of him standing next to it, and the dragon is taller than him.
He's standing up all nice and proud with it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see that.
Well, Jim's the Chuck Norris of painting.
So it would seem.
I don't know if anybody saw that thread that went on that Jim can sneeze on a model and have it Golden Demon ready in 10 seconds. There was a bunch of people that were doing like Chuck Norris style painting jokes with Jim in the process of it. It was pretty good.
I was bawling. I was laughing so hard. I was bawling. It was so funny.
Yeah. That guy's amazing. It was just kind of hilarious.
So I'm trying to think what else it well, Jim played his actual first game of Song of Ice and Fire.
No,
Yeah.
No, he played that at Adepticon.
No. Well, you know what? You're right. He did play. He did play a game. He played with Terry
Yeah, he played with Terry at Adepticon. I remember
at
that.
Adepticon, but that he hasn't played since then.
Yeah, well.
So I don't know if he might have forgotten. Anyways, he'd just been hoping so much to get a tournament game in, but then it turns out that he didn't realize that the Kickstarter exclusive
Is illegal?
stuff is not for tournament play. So he's got this whole list built up and everything around things that he didn't realize you couldn't play in a tournament. And so when he found that out, he was like, well, guess I'm not playing in it because I don't have an army.
Yeah, the Kickstarter miniatures are not legal in tournament play yet. For fun games, nobody cares, of course. But since they're not open to the public and
It
readily
would have been
available for the
nice
public.
if somebody had told him that, though.
Yeah, it's standard tournament packet rule things. But I mean, if it was just him and I playing a
if
game,
you're a regular at playing in tournaments of various sorts,
yeah,
you would know, maybe.
I want to be angry because they're the only fucking company that does that, but it's actually the right choice. It's just, why are they the only fucking company that does that?
But yeah, no, it is per their tournament document, because I've read their tournament document, you can't play any Kickstarter models until they become widely available to everybody within the market, which is understandable.
And I think it's funny also because Jim didn't get them through Kickstarter, so he didn't know.
Yeah, he probably didn't even know that they were
Kickstarter
Kickstarter models.
Kickstarter one. So even if he saw that in the rules, he would have not known what was what. So that was just kind of a disappointing thing because he had been planning on playing in the Adepticon tournament.
So, take note, other miniature companies. This is how you actually do it. Stop being schooled in rules by Cool Mini or not. Embarrassing.
But it kind of sucks they get to play. But I probably would have let him anyway. I mean, but I mean, if it is a tournament, it is a tournament.
They're like, oh, we'll give you, we'll just let you use these unpainted models, and he's like, fuck no.
It's got standards, damn it.
That's hilarious. That sounds like him.
It is very funny though that they have that rule when other formats are going to use some proxies or fuck, we don't care. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, it would be most people don't allow proxies and don't allow pre-release models unless they're released at the event. Then they do it, and then some people are like,
"That's not even the right time to do it either." To be honest,
yeah, there's a lot of controversy over whether you should allow pre-release models in or not. There's some controversy over that, but either way, at least he got to play some games though, and it wasn't just
play a game. Oh, good.
Yeah, it just wasn't the army that he wanted to use type thing.
And he enjoyed it. It was fun. So
the game is. The game is really good. So,
I don't know what else at Reapercon it could be. I mean, I met a ton of people. I met people who do streaming also that I didn't realize, and so I've followed a few new streamers and met some other people who played Diablo 3 and were very excited about Season 18. Because that went live on the Friday right before Reapercon.
Oh, did it? Dang, I need to get on my...
And then... Yeah. I don't know. So, it was fun.
So, do you recommend this as a convention for everybody, anybody, artists only? What do you do? I mean, what do you think?
If you like to paint miniatures, you'll be in heaven because everybody's painting miniatures. And if they're not painting miniatures, they're playing role-playing games. And there's a guy who has a board game library there, so you can go and play board games.
Oh, legit.
But mainly it's a miniature painting convention, and you can just sit there and paint to your heart's content all weekend long. There's tables in the ballroom that are set up just for that. If you don't have paints or a brush or a wet palette, there are places that will sell it, like Reaper. um, Scale
Excuse me.
75 was there. They had their amazing models, and they had their paints. I did get to try the Scale 75 Inktensity inks on my little fox girl, and I liked those. They really were intense. Product is as advertised.
I'm a fan of their metallics.
So I haven't tried their metallics, but I I did like the inks for what I used them for, so it was cool. And what else? What else?
How about food? Did you go to some cool restaurants?
Well, it's a tradition to go to Heart 8. I see my friends Jack and Dixie, who live in Ohio. I see them like once a year. No, actually, I think they came to Adepticon this year too, maybe. But Reapercon is the one where Dixie and I get to hang out and color. She has adult coloring books, and she brings the glitter gel pens, and we just sit and color after hours. So I got some good coloring in with her. She doesn't paint miniatures. Actually, she hadn't yet painted miniatures, but she found 2 miniatures, and I helped her get started with priming and doing a wash on it. I just walked her through how I prep all my models, and if you watch my stream during the week, then you've probably seen me prepping, getting those base layers down on my models. So we just did brush on Stynel res and used the Inktensity inks to do a dark wash to get down into the crevices. We didn't get to the dry brushing part, but her husband Jack has been painting for a number of years, so he can walk her through all that stuff.
Cool.
Sweet.
So it was fun to kind of just, to talk to a complete beginner about how to get started.
We got about 10 minutes left before we have to do the other stuff. John had something he wanted to bring up because something happened over the week, Star Wars Legion wise.
Ready to put that on me, huh?
Yep. Put it on you now.
So earlier in the week, FFG announced they're putting out a new FAQ for Star Wars Legion, and it was actually going to be a little more in-depth than a normal FAQ. It's going to be like a once-a-year document where they adjust points and add some rules where, do some other rules adjustments. Like big rules adjustments, not just the standard, oh, here's your clarification, like legit additions. So this one came with points adjustments for older models, and actually some slightly newer models. I was a little bit surprised. And then some other various adjustments. The big notes I would go through are they added range 5 to be an actual thing that exists.
So I thought
which
was
is obviously made by putting a 5th one in your movement in your range ruler, which is easy peasy. And even included rules for how do you measure to range 5 if you don't have a range 5 thing. You measure to range 1, you mark that with your finger, then you measure to range 4 from there.
Huh.
As if we all didn't know how to do that, but I like it being spelled out.
Yes.
So that other big adjustments as far as rules, there's a lot of highlight rules, a lot of rules from the Clone Wars that are coming in that are kind of interesting. Other big highlights are the sniper rifles, Gonzo, are now only range 5. They're not range unlimited.
Okay. I was wondering, I didn't get to read all of them, but I know sniper rifles were a big contested thing right now.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Sniper rifles, like everyone has 2 or 3 sniper teams in their list.
John, did you go away?
Uh-oh.
Right now, John. Losing John. No. Come back to us. I know that they did. I'll keep the conversation going until the lag catches up or whatever. I do know that they did drop the point values of quite a few models. One of the things they did is they dropped the ATST points and the Snowspeeder, and I know Darth Vader got drop points too, which is good because that means that we can get, you can field more. I went and checked my old list that I built and compared the points, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of extra points. And like one of the things I saw is I had a 1,000 point list with an ATST and Boba Fett and Death Troopers and all this other stuff, and it was an 800 points, and it dropped down to 938. Then I had a 1,000 point list, which had like General Veers and an ATST and all this other stuff, and it dropped down to 979 points out of 1,000. So there was quite a big points drop on a lot of things. It's people are going to start fielding more. John talking about um,
I should
the
be back.
there you go. Okay,
Yes.
I was John when you were talking about the sniper teams. I know that people were like, there's so many people that complained about the sniper teams that it was just constant nonstop. The
Yeah.
sniper teams were just outrageously super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot. They were just too good of support for what they are. So they put them range 5. They also raised the cost of the small sniper team. So if you have the 2-man crew, it actually raised the cost by 4 points. So that was interesting. You guys still hearing me?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, you're a little
Okay.
breaking up, but
Twitch is being weird. I don't know if it's just my thing, but the other big ones is let's see. The land speeder is now immune to it's not that range immune to weapons that are range 1 only, i.e. grenades. Because you try throwing a grenade at a helicopter or something, that's going to go over well for you. The EWAB heavy blaster team lost plotting, so it can move twice. It still can't move and shoot, but it can move twice during a turn, which is good because otherwise there's not a lot you can do during your turn. It's like move and stand by, hope someone gets in range 3. And then the Rebel version, the laser cannon team, which I love and I've used many, many, many times, it wasn't good enough, so they made it range 5.
Which I can see
to
it.
me because I thought it was good at range 4.
Well, it's also a big
Again,
laser, so I could see that.
Player than the average. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not like don't think it's like unwarranted or anything. I think you really had to think about it, and I think that's sort of the problem. It's an age-old problem in miniature games. People don't want to think.
Yeah.
The other piece notes, both of the generators that the EWEB and the FE 1.4 laser cannon can use went down by 3 points each. So that's good. Duck and cover, which is a common use for any of the commandos or anyone like that with low profile or something, went from 8 to 4. Targeting scopes went from 6 to 4. Saber throw, force reflexes, and battlefield meditation, those force powers all went down by 5 points each, which is surprising. But I mean, honestly, force reflexes, if you're not playing Vader, is 15 points for 1 dodge token unless you can manage to finagle your way into a recover action, which is not easy in a game. Long-range comms, which almost never got any use, went down to 5 points. And commanding presence, which I used on Leia every time, went down by 5 points to 5. And then emergency stims, which I never used because some people have really like it. Some people of the tournament scene went from like 8 to 12. For use it, I can't speak to how good it is, but the guys online feel like it's no longer an auto-include if they think it's a fair price. Other highlights are speeder bikes went down by 15 points. The ATST went down to 170, which is like 20 points for 15
Yeah.
points.
Went down 20 points.
That. Vader went down to 190 base, which is, and then the Ion Snowtrooper went down, and the missile launcher Stormtrooper went down points. Side completely. Chewbacca went down by 15 points, and I don't know why, because Chewbacca's awesome. He can be removed easily in some cases, but if you play him right. But 15-point decrease, I ain't gonna argue with it. And then Jyn Erso went down by 20 points, which I can see because in the games I've played her, I found she was solid but not overwhelming by any stretch. And the airspeeder went down a ton of points, like you said. While I was connecting here, I went down to 140, which is like a 25-point decrease. It's crazy. I know all my lists went down by like 30 to 50 points. Double airspeeder list, which went down by like a shit ton. There's like a ton of upgrades on the Rebel side. Half of their weapons. One of the Rebel veteran ones just came out, like literally just released. I mean, boxes of them. Like they're like a month old or so. Went down. The Ion Trooper for the Rebel Troopers went down, and the Barrage Trooper for the Fleet Troopers went down, which is fair because no one used those weapons. I mean, honestly, the other Trooper for Fleet Troopers is just better. He's got the scatter gun, which is super good. But this makes it possibly playable. I could see bringing it. And the Ion Trooper, ion guns were just too expensive with them exhausting to use. You had to do them. Then, in addition to the airspeeder going down, the what do you call it? The two weapons for the airspeeder, the ground buzzer rear cannon and the power harpoon, went down. I forget what the points were, but they're down to 10 and 3 points respectively. So they're downright portable now. And the Rebel Pathfinders, that new squad from Rogue One, they had a gun configurations for longer range. They just took the point cost off of that. You can buy it if you want, which is super cool because I mean, you probably bought it because it had a lot of good versatility, but it was kind of a pain to use. And then the ATRT, I thought they'd made all their weapons cost the median, so all their weapons are around 20 points regardless of what they are. No, like the flamethrower went down by 5, the rotary cannon by 10, and the laser cannon by 15. So basically, that model went down by a ton of points.
Well, I mean,
good changes, all interesting. Go ahead.
I was saying they did a lot of changes to the models, and like I said, I was looking at my list. And of course, my lists are no longer valid because I've gained 20, 30, 40 points on my lists, depending on what I had on there.
You're also making a 1,000-point list, which is wrong. It's 800 points. So.
Well, there was one time we were making 1,000 points lists and stuff,
which is fine, and actually it's a good topic. It doesn't matter what the game says. You should play what you want to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll talk about my list. Actually cataloged it on all of them. Went through that as soon as this hit. I think I actually did it Saturday. I was a little busy, and I'm very. I just noticed that they changed the range of the Ion Trooper for the Snow Trooper. He's now range 3 also, which is too long. But I am a very once a year as Hugh Arata fix things. I'm looking forward to maybe them rolling out next year for Armada, because next year is going to be, I don't want to say the year of Armada, but it's going to be a year where Armada hits a little more. So I'm looking forward to all that. Glad they're getting with the times. Why is my window constantly changing size?
Something's wrong with your Skype.
Mine did last time.
Yeah, something's wrong with Skype. We're getting some issues with Skype right now, which I believe I might have a new fix for. I just have to do some testing with you guys and get rid of Skype for good.
Huh.
I mean,
you're all for that, right?
I find it weird that last time I had that problem, and this time you're having that problem.
Yeah, because you kept on coming in and out and robot talking the whole time, so it was weird. But we are going to media section. It is 8 o'clock. Let's go ahead and flip over there real quick. Maybe that'll help out your screen, John. I don't know. But I have 2 things to talk about, but 2 large things to talk about, 2 series. Cathy, you said you didn't have anything?
You can take your time because, I didn't watch anything for a week, so.
All right. John, what do you got?
I had 2 things.
You have two things. Okay, let's go with this one because I think both of you can comment on this. I'll go with one of mine, and it is something that's very important and something that's really cool because I also watched kind of the behind the scenes and how they were planning on doing stuff. I watched the new Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. As everybody know, it's a Netflix series, and it is a prequel to the Dark Crystal movie. All done with puppets, muppets, whatever you want to call them. Everybody done with, people in suits or, whatever. As an overall series, it was good. As a technical aspect, there was some flaws. Story-wise, story was great. It was good. It was Dark Crystal. It was fun. I had a blast with it. The character's really cool. Hup is my favorite one. He is my favorite character. I wish there was more of him. Deet is one of my second favorite characters in there. It feels like Dark Crystal. It sounds like Dark Crystal. It looks like Dark Crystal. It's weird that this is a prequel, and as everybody's seen, the original movie, the Skeksis are half of another creature, and the story starts off with them corrupting the crystal, and it's turning dark and causing all these problems. And it's got the same feel. The puppets look the same, minus one thing. There is one issue I have to say with the puppets, and that is the facial expressions of the Gelfling. Every Gelfling...
Not the first time I heard that.
Yeah, every Gelfling's facial expression is pretty much the same. Their eyebrows, their cheeks, the only thing that moves is their mouth and eyelids and eyes. So it's really hard to get good facial expressions out of it. I was kind of upset by that because I was like, we've come pretty far in puppetry. I figured we could have got something that made it, where they kind of moved or, it was more shocked or more open.
Well, let me counter, if you will. Perhaps it is a racial feature, not actually. I mean, we don't know, but I always like to think of that other end. Like maybe they just rolled in, like, yeah, they don't have that ability. They don't emote like that. Maybe. I mean, they're not humans. They look humanoid, and we always like to project our own abilities onto humanoid-looking creatures. But maybe they don't have that.
Well, you could tell that there was surprised, and they tried to do some surprise looks, but everything was plastic surgery to look. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm surprised. And you couldn't tell it.
There's only so much they can do with it. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, that was my only really big complaint about the puppetry was that I figured their facial expressions would be a whole lot better because there was a lot of emotion in this. The story had a lot of emotions going for it, with characters and the story. There's plenty of comedy, plenty of, good little small jokes. It was nice to see the world fleshed out and a ton of Gelflings and what Gelfling society looks like. You automatically know that the Skeksis are evil.
You know what's going to happen, and I feel like that is my biggest problem going into this. Is I love the concept of a built-up world and seeing what it was like. I don't know if it was the right call, but I think it was the only story they could tell because I don't think they have anything else to go to from there.
Correct. So, well, I mean, because if you think about it, you can do a prequel and we can learn how it happened, or you can do a sequel, but are they going to repopulate the Gelfling society? I don't think so, unless they find some hidden Gelfling, resistance fighters that hid away for the entire time.
That's the standard too, isn't it? You go you go on a journey because you hear some new Gelflings and you find new Gelflings, and then you
go on
a third one where it's the inevitable demise of the franchise because you're just looking for money then. And sorry. That's sort of my thing is you cannot build proper story suspense.
You know what's going to happen at the end of the series.
Because even if it doesn't happen during the series, you know what's going to happen. So it's like I'm just seeing if he survives long enough to die. Like it's like the Titanic. Well, we only know only a handful of people survived. So we're just looking to see if they survive to the point where most people die or not. and that's weird.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Season 1 was good. I'm going to tell you right now. Minor issues. So there's not like a huge, thing, but you kind of sit back and the people that have seen it, and like I'm going to start showing it to on the half of a Friday at my school if the kids, whoever behaved during the week and stuff, can earn what's called Fun Friday. And none of my kids have seen The Dark Crystal, the movie, or they just saw. I gave them the trailer for the Netflix show because I'm allowed to show Netflix stuff, and I'm going to play that for them, and I want to see the reaction built from them that don't know what's happening.
Yeah, the Dark Crystal's hardcore though. You got to be careful.
Yeah,
It is a dark movie. People, I mean,
yes.
shit. If you're gonna show them the Dark Crystal, you might as well follow it up with the Black Cauldron. Jesus.
They are making a live action of the Black Cauldron now too. They're doing that.
Why? It's just called a fantasy movie for fuck's sake.
But so I'm going to show it to them. But I'm kind of curious because, like I says, you, and everybody else knows what happens at the end of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. So how we get there is
Many Bothans died.
Basically.
We talked about that when I talked to someone else about it, where it's like, so in something analogous like Rogue One, you don't know what happens to the guys. They could have gotten away and just been doing rebellion stuff outside of the purview of our handful of heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what could have happened? They didn't necessarily all die. I mean, spoiler, they all died. But you didn't know that was going to happen, so you could build proper tension and feeling for the characters.
Yeah.
But if you had a series set on Alderaan, you're like, all you fuckers are dead. I'm just waiting for that Death Star to show up on the horizon.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I'll wait for season 2, and I'll watch it because it was good fun. Action was really cool. It was neat to learn about the world because you learn more about the world, and Algren is in it, and she's cool as hell. To watch and and see and get in there. I mean, you do love the nostalgia because it is there and it's worth it.
Did they spoil that female Gelflings have wings?
Yes, they did.
You gotta watch Dark Crystal first now because that's a fun moment in the movie.
It is a fun moment in the movie, but I mean, for overall, it was really good. After I got done watching the series, immediately there was like the behind the scenes of what they were going to do, how they were going to do it. And they said they've been in talks to do a prequel for a long time, but they thought they wanted to do it as a cartoon. And I was like, okay, I can see why. And then they were like, we're not going to do it as a cartoon. We're going to do it as a full Muppet show type thing.
Keep your craft going.
Yeah. And
cartoon
so they
is the easy way out. Don't do that shit.
Yeah. So they were doing that, and they said, well, let's do everything, but let's do the Gelflings as CGI. And it didn't look good. Because they showed some production shots and stuff like this, and they were like, we just couldn't get it to match up to what our taste was. So we just said we did all of it. But the CGI people were like, wait a minute, why don't we put CGI expressions on the Gelflings' faces?
That seems like the way forward.
Which I thought was weird. I didn't get to finish watching that part because I had to go do something later that night. And they didn't do that in the final show. So I didn't get to see why they didn't do it.
It might be still a work in progress. The Uncanny Valley, even though it's a puppet, is a thing that we still have to get by in everyone, which is why I want people to push that envelope on that technology.
Yeah.
Because eventually we'll have a lot of ability, but it just people are hesitant to push the envelope after blowback on things like Tron Legacy and even Tarkin in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, it was interesting to see the different aspects that they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, and they finally ended up just doing it old school. And it was still good to watch. I mean, it's still a good series. If you like Dark Crystal, you'll like this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just for people like you and I, we know what happens at the end. They're all fucked. But for people that don't know it, which are very
spoiler alert.
Yeah, which
I mean, you're spoiling a movie that's like how many years old now? many years old.
Many.
I think we're outside of spoiler territory.
Yeah. So, like I said, this Friday, I'm going to start showing it to my kids and see what they think of it. And they're like third and fourth graders, so it's right up their alley, and it's going to be fun. I'm just kind of
37
curious.
years old.
Is it really almost 40 years old? Damn.
82.
But I'm kind of curious to
it's
see
okay
what's
to
going.
spoil.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious of how they're going to react and such because it'll be interesting to see. I give it like 1 to 1.5, just based on some of the puppetry that I think could have been improved over the years. But it was very entertaining. Characters are very well liked. The characters are very unique. There's some new twists based on everything. It's really cool to learn the new world. I highly recommend it. Go watch it. If you like the Dark Crystal one, you'll like this. And I hope they get renewed for another season.
Awesome.
John, your first one?
I'm going to go in chronological order from when they released. I'm going to start with a little John Woo movie called Broken Arrow, which was not his first movie in the U.S. I think that was Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which I reviewed, I want to say, earlier this year. Broken Arrow is Christian Slater and John Travolta, and the rest of the cast really doesn't matter, unless you really want to note that it's Howie Long's feature film debut, and he acts about as good as a football player can be expected to act. But somehow he parlayed that into an actual starring role in a movie later, which I will not rewatch and talk about, unless I get really desperate. So the whole concept is Travolta and Slater are both pilots of a stealth bomber, and they're doing a training exercise with live nukes just to see if they'll be detectable with radioactive material on board. Perfectly logical, premise. But Travolta turns out to be a bad guy who wants to steal the nukes and sell them. And in a cunning turn of events, they're like, well, you can buy nukes in the Soviet republics. It's like, no, he's selling them back to the U.S. because he's basically threatening terrorism. It's a very early movie for that kind of thing, but it starts off, pretty solid, and then it's just a non-stop roller coaster ride. We always used to joke that it's just action, 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 butterflies, action, 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 action. And it is enjoyable as long as you like Christian Slater and John Travolta. And a funny thing is John Travolta is the first villain I've seen in a movie that had his own theme music that played whenever he came in. It was really kind of odd. Travolta is chewing scenery. Christian Slater is a little more subdued for him, but still very Christian Slater-ish. The rest of the class is serviceable, but not great. And this is one of those movies I would say, it is not necessarily a good movie, but it is a great action movie. It has some good fights, some good scenes, solid story. It does not let you stop and think long enough to go, hey, wait a minute. Just doesn't let go. It's foot on the accelerator, go, 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 go. And I also like, since there's a female lead, who's a park ranger in the park where they drop the nukes, and she is not hyper competent, but she's not a putz, which I like. Because, you can get by, okay, Travolta and Christian Slater, they're officers and they're Air Force officers, so somehow they're actually good with guns and stuff. I don't know. But that's much more feasible than a park ranger being like some action badass. But she's still competent. She can still do things. She can fire a gun. She's got a gun. She's not stupid. She knows a lot of things. She's still useful and not just a damsel in distress, which I liked. They do have the little slight romance between the two of them, but it's nothing super overt. It's sort of quasi-believable through it. Overall, it's just a fun action ride, not too long, doesn't overstay its welcome at all. But the movie does hate helicopters. Spoiler warning, if there's a helicopter, do not expect that bitch to last long. It's not gonna. Every helicopter dies. All of them. But I enjoy the crap out of it. I am going to give it 1 Space Herpy because I love this movie. Is it good enough for 1 Space Herpy? You probably give it 2. I mean, the average person will probably give it 2, but I love this movie. I saw it 5 times in the theater. Why 5 times in the theater, John? Because I saw it. Then all my friends went separately, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm not doing anything. Let's go see this movie again. And I will say, it's one of those movies that the sound effects are super loud, and then everything else is a lot quieter. So it will play havoc with your neighbors or your sound system. But it was a fucking experience in the theater. Like, the Dolby surround sound was fucking on point to the entire movie. It was just a great experience in the theater. I wish people could experience that, but you're gonna have to wait till like the 25th anniversary, which would be in 2021 by my quick math. So maybe Fathom Events will put it in the theater for that, and you'll get to have the experience too. But I enjoy the crap out of it. I suggest it. I may or may not own it on Blu-ray.
I do.
And there you go. Gonzo, hit us up with the second one.
I watched, and it's kind of a controversial one, Carnival Row. New Amazon series. That is kind of about fays. Fae type creatures. There are centaurs, pixies, satyrs, I guess, but they call them pucks instead. I know we have kobolds in a what's the best way to put it? It's kind of like the 1800s, and it's a dark, mysterious movie where the pixies and fae creatures are being hunted by humans in their own land. And so while they're being hunted in their own land, they can run to another place. And this other place is called Berg. And Berg is kind of like their sanctuary. But the problem is they're not really well liked in their sanctuary. So it's kind of weird. The time frame is kind of like the 1800s, even though they call it the 7th century. It has,
Oh.
yeah. Their time, the time period. If you were going to put it in your own time period, it's like the 1800s, but it is kind of. They call it the 7th century is what their time frame is, so it's a little bit different. It's kind of weird, I guess you could say. But everything feels like the late 1800s. Almost steampunky, almost industrial revolution type stuff, whatever. The dress is kind of like the 1800s, late 1800s. Main character is Orlando Bloom, which you know is very famous for his role in Elizabethtown. Not Pirates of the Caribbean or, Lord of the Rings. Those were small piddly pits for him. There's a running joke that someone's going to get about that. He plays a copper and a detective that's trying to solve the murders, which is interesting because it's really not about the murder. They kind of put it off of like a Jack the Ripper type thing, but it deviates from that right off the bat type thing. The other main actress, I can't remember her name, but she played in what was that movie? Oh crap! I'm gonna like. She was in Suicide Squad, and what was the other one? That we thought was decent, but it didn't do good in the movie theater. Valerian. She was Sergeant Laureline. I can't remember. Not Claire Danes. It's Cara Delevingne. I can't remember if that's how it is or not. How it's pronounced. And she plays a pixie. I'm almost done with the entire series. I've seen most of it, and so far, it's just okay. It's just all right. The better parts of the series, and I was agreeing with someone else that started watching it, are the flashbacks. the flashbacks of learning what the Fey world was like before this happened, or learning about the war that started, them having to leave and such, to me, it has been more entertaining. The current storyline is just okay. You're trying to figure out who or what this creature is that's killing off Faye. But I really enjoy the flashback stuff more than the current storyline. It's very well acted. There's no problem with that. It's got a great scenery. Special effects are good. Nothing like that. It just is a meh. And that's the best way to put it. It's just meh. I don't know if it's going to get renewed for another season. It might. But it's just okay. Should you rush out there to watch it? Not really, because they're like, hour-long episodes. True hour-long episodes. Is it neat? Sure. So, I have to give it like a 2.5 because it's just meh. Maybe the ending will make me go, yes, I have to see the rest of it. But for the most part, it's just okay. And I was kind of upset because I had high hopes for it. So, you want to see Orlando Bloom and as a copper and Claire or whatever her name is as a pixie? Go for it. There's some cool history behind it. There's some cool stuff. Great costumes. I'll tell you that much. The costumes are really good in it. The world's really neat. It's just, I don't know if it's enough. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best spoiler for review ever.
It's just... I can't do it. Most of the stuff that I've said, or pretty much all of it I've said is on there. It is in the trailer. The characters aren't like super rememberable. You're just like, I don't love all the characters. I haven't found a character I think is just amazing. There's a couple of side plots. I know that, what was it? Xander says, Game of Thrones being Victorian at times. There's not as much political intrigue for Game of Thrones type thing. But it's okay. If you got some time, watch it. Like I said, I got like 2 episodes left and then I'll be finished. But for the most part, I'm just kind of like,
Meh plus?
Meh plus, because
I think
it's
I'll
cool.
still watch it because I like urban fantasy.
Yes.
As books.
Yes.
So I'll be curious enough to at least give it a try.
Like this, the world and everything is fine. The costuming, the special effects, everything's really good. So there's no downgrade on that. It's just the story and everything else is just kind of eh. So I'm kind of curious what you have, because I do like urban fantasy stuff too. I think it's really cool. So I'm just kind of waiting so far, but it's been okay. It's better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Most things are.
Most things.
So, other than that, so I gotta give it 2.5 right now. I'm gonna finish watching the last 2 episodes as soon as I can. Hopefully, that'll drop down and it'll be a whole lot better. So, I don't know. John, what's your last one?
My last one is Mystery Men. I
Love that
decided to
movie.
watch that because the movie podcast I follow did the class of 1999, and that is one of the class of 1999. And apparently, and this has shocked some people, this movie is not actually well liked by everyone.
I can see that.
I like it,
Also,
and the soundtrack is awesome.
the soundtrack is awesome, but it's very much like the movie. It is quirky as fuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. So the whole idea is Champion City, and there's crime there, but they have Captain Amazing to fight it. And then they have these wannabe superheroes. William H. Macy playing the Shoveler. What's his name? Nathan Lang playing the Blue Raja. Even though he doesn't have blue, Master of Cutlery. And then Ben Stiller, in my favorite Ben Stiller role, as Mr. Furious. Who, I'm not going to, spoil the most wannabe of the wannabes. His power is he gets really, really angry.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun movie about wannabes having to basically step up and be the heroes. Because Captain Amazing is a great superhero, but he is not the brightest bulb in the box.
Nope.
And then you have Greg Kinnear, who somehow can't get a job in Hollywood anymore. I don't understand it. Plays Captain Amazing very well. I mean, the cast of this movie is completely on point. You have Jeffrey Rush as Casanova Frankenstein, and he is just chewing scenery.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love that there's a character called Casanova Frankenstein in that.
He puts it all in. He leaves nothing. He's doing this Werner Herzog-esque sort of accent and saying the most crazy things in it and just taking the material with absolute serious, even though it's not absolutely serious. You got Paul Rubens as the spleen. You get Gene Garofalo as the bowler. It is great. It is so quirky and weird. Like nowadays, with all these superhero movies being fairly mainstream and pretty normal in general, it is a great quirky and is just as good of a watch nowadays as it was back when it came out.
Yeah.
I love Invisible Boy.
Yes. The funny thing is, if you think about when this came out, Ben Stiller was doing serious stuff. And then, what's his name? Kev Walker or something like that, who played Invisible Boy, was doing, comedy stuff. The actors were all... This is not a normal movie for any of them at that time. Because Gene Garofalo and Ben Stiller were more doing serious stuff. William H. Macy was doing serious stuff. Nathan Lang just does whatever he wants because he's got that sweet, sweet Simpson money. He didn't need to do anything. He just does what he wants, but they all just put it all into it. They all take it so seriously. Eddie Izzard's in it as Tony P, Master of the Disco Boys.
I totally forgot about him being in there.
Man, the gangs that Casanova Frankenstein has are great, and if you look at the cast for them, it's off the chain.
Yeah.
CeeLo Green is in there somehow. Sun Kang from Fast and Furious fame. It's a ton of people in this movie. They just go all in. Tom Waite is the freaking Heller, the scientist who gets them all their very amusing gear. And it's just a great time. It is.
Sanders right. Mystery Men 2 should be made now.
Oh my god, they're kind of old. This is 20 years old. 20. 2 decades. So you can all feel old again. Sorry. No, sorry. I feel old too. But it's just a fun movie. It just has some fun, witty lines. It's just enjoyable from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, some parts don't hold up so much anymore. Graphically, sometimes. But I enjoy the crap out of it. I'm going to give it one space because some of those things don't hold up so well. And some of the jokes don't necessarily hit anymore. I mean, Spleen is basically one long fart joke.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good fart joke. But it's just one long fart joke. And Paul Rubens was great in it. I mean, the cast just brings it. I enjoy the crap out of this movie. I own it on DVD, but as Banian will attest to, my DVD is really quirky, much like the movie. Might have to buy it on Blu-ray just for that better quality picture. If you see it, I suggest watching the deleted scenes. Cathy, you've heard the soundtrack, so you've heard quotes from one of the deleted scenes. Because part of one of the songs, it's the Mystery Men Credo.
Ah, yes.
And
I don't have that memorized, but that is pretty funny.
Our listeners, my ex-wife and I were huge fans of this movie, soundtrack, everything, love it. In fact, after we get done and I get back from eating actual dinner, not just a Sunday, I'll definitely listen to that. But enjoy the crap out of it. Suggest you guys check it out. It's a good change of pace from... I mean, Marvel movies aren't too heavy, but they've been heavy enough. This is just a good... there is no serious in this movie, but they take it all seriously.
Yes.
No matter how ridiculous it gets, they take it seriously. Yeah, that's the exact point, Cathy. So there you go. I mean, Mystery Men, just fucking watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it already and you like good hero spoofs, you're missing out. It's quality.
I mean, after all those Batman movies that just missed the mark, those 2 Batman... Well, I'm going to say 3 Batman movies that missed the mark because I'm not a fan of Batman Returns. Apologies to everyone who is. That movie just way too fucking weird for me. Okay. Just a little too fucking out there. It was a good end of the sort of century superhero movie. Because honestly, next century, when it starts, 2000 start, superhero movies just start a little slow, but they take off and they just fucking go. Because we get X-Men, Spider-Man, everything. They just go.
I did think one of the things that I loved about it was what's his face's quotes. It was like,
Ben Stiller's Mr. Furious.
Yeah, he was like, "You must master your anger, or your anger will master you."
Oh no, the Sphinx.
Yeah, the Sphinx.
Oh, the Sphinx, yeah.
He's funny.
Yeah.
There's actually even a solid arc in this movie. It's pretty enjoyable.
It is pretty good, but whenever they started ragging on each other and stuff, I was like, "Holy shit!"
There's only one sort of setup that doesn't pay off, and if you watch the deleted scenes, which it should not shock you at all to know that I have, it pays off in the original ending, not the one that they filmed, or they fully filmed.
Gotcha.
But I'm not going to spoil that in case you guys want to see the deleted.
Well, I'll have to do that because I didn't know there was deleted scenes on one of them, so I'll have to do that. Well, guys, that's it. We're back and we're done. Episode 92 is done. Won't even let me finish.
What? Cathy.
For more than dice, I'm Gonzo.
Cathy.
Good night, dorks.
Good night.
Oh my god, y'all are dorks. I swear.
I'm John.
No, you're not.
I don't know what the music is because I can't hear it. So.
Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na.